We can't even pinpoint the origins of our own consciousness. That is one of the big mysteries of being alive. Where does our consciousness come from? When does it get ignited? Where does it go? Energy isn't destroyed in the universe, it's just recycled. I am not worried at all about computers becoming sentient.
Welcome to Prompted, a podcast about AI, creativity, and the creative spark. I'm Cameron Adams, co-founder and chief product officer of Canva, and today I am here with the esteemed Debbie Millman. Debbie is a designer, author, educator, and host of the pioneering podcast Design Matters, which is one of the longest running podcasts in the world. Over the past 2 decades, she has interviewed more than 700 of the world's most creative thinkers, helping shape conversations at the intersection of design, storytelling, and culture. Previously, Debbie spent 20 years as president of Sterling Brands, leading major branding initiatives for companies like Burger King, Hershey's, and Tropicana. She also co-founded the first graduate program in branding at the School of Visual Arts in New York City. It doesn't stop there. Debbie is the author of multiple books on design and creativity, and her work has appeared in publications like the New York Times and Fast Company. She has received numerous honors, including a Cooper Hewitt National Design Award and AIGA's Lifetime Achievement Award. Debbie, I don't think I've had a more esteemed person on this podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Cam. You did forget one thing.
What was that?
I'm on the design advisory board of Canva, which is something I love being on.
Well, it's great that I don't have to say that you can say that, and it doesn't have to be a shilling podcast.
Absolutely. Absolutely no shilling. I just love being part of the Canva family now.
I think we know a great deal about you now from your incredible career, but we have a more intriguing way of getting to know someone on this podcast, and that's through something that we call the prompt. So we get you to draw something from your childhood or something that influenced you deeply and get you to tell a bit of a story about it. Are you ready to do this?
I am absolutely ready to do it.
I've seen some of your doodles. They're incredible. So I have high expectations of this one.
Okay. So I loved drawing when I was a kid. I mean, I still do.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, Cam, I could not draw certain letters.
Okay.
I had a real hard time. So my full legal name is Deborah,
Okay.
Deborah. Cam, I could not draw the H. I don't know if it was something spatially, something with my developing brain, but I couldn't draw an H. 2 lines, 1 cross, couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I was with my grandmother and we were drawing and I wanted to sign my name on the drawing and I had a complete meltdown. Because I couldn't draw the H.
Yeah.
And in that moment, my nickname was born.
You had no nickname. Everyone just went around
Everybody called me Deborah.
Okay.
And from that moment on, for the rest of my life, I became Debbie.
Wow.
No H.
You're one of the very few people who came up with their own nicknames. That's amazing.
No, it was my grandmother. My grandmother's like, she was trying to comfort me. She's like, why don't we just call you Debbie? My grandmother was so kind. She took the drawing, even with the mangled H, which I was like, I just couldn't do the 2 parallel lines and the vertical line, horizontal line. She put it in the window of our house so that she could show that she was still really proud of it.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I know. I have this memory of driving up to my house, I guess, with my parents, with the drawing now in the window, with the H like really big, because I'd kept trying to do it in this, again, mangled kind of way. So it's both a sort of a happy story and that my grandmother was trying to let me feel accepted as is without having to worry about not being able to do something well, and then wanting me to see how proud she was that I had tried to do it and that I did it, but even though it wasn't what I wanted it to be. And then her sort of hack around the fact that I was having such a hard time spelling my name that she said, let's just go by Debbie.
Amazing. And I assume that when you're taking on branding clients, you don't take on anyone with the letter H in their name?
Well, now I can happily draw the letter H. And not only that, I do have to say, most of my artwork is using hand lettering. So I've come a long way, fortunately.
You definitely have.
Since those early days of having trouble writing letters.
Well, we'll give you a bit of time to do your doodle, and then we'll show it to Matt, our designer in residence.
So the problem I had was I couldn't get the lines. So that's why everything was sort of, I couldn't, and I remember it just being like this mishmash of letters, lines, and that's what it ended up being. Plus, I was crying and having this meltdown that it was so ugly, and that's sort of the way it looked.
Well, I love the way it looks. Can you show it to Matt, our designer online, who is going to take that and turn it into something special? It's going to be a collaboration between you, Matt, and AI, and we will see what happens to it by the end of the show.
I'm very, 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 very excited.
So am I.
I actually wrote a piece about this in one of my books. It's called The Letter H, and I've never really resolved this. So this will be a lifetime resolution of this experience.
This early
trauma.
That we're going to help you work through this. We're going to do it right on air. You're here for the ride. Let's get into some great questions.
Okay.
And there's so much I wanted to talk to you about. But you started your career in a moment when people thought computers might really ruin design and creativity. I'm interested in how you felt at that time and whether you see any parallels between then and what's going on now.
Absolutely. Because I see so many parallels and because I love research so much, not only can I tell you about some of the parallels from the 80s and early 90s till now, I can also go back in time and share some of the ways that humanity has worried and tried to actually thwart innovation because of fear.
Let's go all the way back to the Babylonians and cuneiform and clay tablets.
So do you know that Socrates and Plato were vehemently opposed to writing?
What?
Yes, this is documented.
Wow.
I've done an enormous amount of research about fear and the future.
Yeah.
Plato and Socrates were afraid of writing, or really opposed to writing, because they thought it would ruin our memory.
That is incredible.
That if we wrote things down, we would lose our ability to remember things. There were people, when Gutenberg first came out with the press, there were people that were so opposed to the press because it would take away jobs from the scribes and the monks.
Yes.
That they actually staged a protest in Paris and destroyed a printing press. There were people that felt that the railroad, if you went over 30 miles per hour, your skin would fall off. And worse, and this is documented in the New York Times, that a woman's uterus might fall out.
God.
Humans have always been afraid of change and innovation because of something that they couldn't predict would happen. And if we can't predict what will happen, humans are hardwired because of our reptilian brain, which is the oldest part of the brain, sits right on top of the spinal cord, that it triggers our feelings of unpredictability and uncertainty, which then creates a need to protect ourselves. And that's what we're trying to do.
I love that Socrates and Plato were worried about memory, because yesterday I was having a chat with Rafiq Anadol, who's an amazing artist based here in Los Angeles. And he works with data and AI and turns them into the most incredible installations that have been at MoMA and other huge museums. And one of his themes is him using data as collective memory.
Right.
Where he is basically distilling all of humankind down into a work which resonates across a deep emotional level. So it's almost the opposite to what Socrates and Plato were talking about, in that he can preserve that memory and surface it in ways that people haven't experienced before.
Yeah. So there are so many innovations that might seem trivial to us now and that we just depend upon for living that people were opposed to over the last centuries.
So do you see what we're going through now in terms of artificial intelligence and other technologies that are coming to the fore? Is it just another tool shift? Is it the same as going from scribes to the printing press? Or is there something more fundamental here about how we rethink how we do the creative act and whether humans are a central part to it or whether they're just kind of directors on the side to some other thing that's doing it?
I mean, I think all of these things in many ways are true, depending on how we approach what we do. In the 80s, you mentioned this shift, and Milton Glaser, arguably one of the most important designers of the 20th century, in the 80s said that computers are to design as to what microwaves are to cooking. I think that most humans see something they don't understand as threatening. Whether or not it ends up threatening has a lot to do with how willing we are to try things, how willing we are to experiment. But having lived through now 3 massive technological changes and other minor ones, there's never been a time where designers in particular didn't think that our profession and discipline was doomed. And there were also other minor incidents along the way. Even cable television, people were worried that it was going to change the way that the craft was distributed. In radio, and people thought that, video kills the radio star, and now everybody in the world has a podcast.
Yeah.
So it's really a matter of how much you're willing to accept that change can actually be something positive. Most people see any kind of thing you might be giving up as then creating scarcity, as opposed to, because mostly we don't understand what we might get in the future via these new things. And so in the 80s, I heard all of the great designers of that time talking about how the computer was taking the soul away from design, the craft, the care, and that didn't really happen. And again, the computer was going to destroy jobs. Well, in fact, Steve Jobs actually created hundreds of thousands of jobs. And now look at a company like Canva. Canva wouldn't have been able to exist back then. How many people work at Canva?
Absolutely. 5,000.
Exactly. So then we moved into the late 90s, into the early 2000s, and we were told that the internet was going to destroy the design business. And again, the opposite happened. I think when we don't understand something, we just associate that with something threatening. And while I think that there's always going to be bad actors in the world that use any means to do bad things, I think that there's an opportunity here to do things that we've never seen before, which I particularly find empowering. There are so many things that I can't do, Cam, and haven't been able to do, and felt thwarted by the fact that I couldn't do these things. I'm actually a bit of a Luddite. And now that I have these tools, I actually feel empowered to be able to experiment doing things that I was never able to do before. And I find that thrilling.
Is there a project in your career where you use one of these moments in technological shift and really embrace the technology to do something very different that was very native to that thing that other people might have been scared about?
I'm always late to technology, to be honest. And I didn't really start thinking about using AI in my own work probably until, I would say, the summer of 2024. When I finished the program, my graduate program, my students graduated, they had started using AI.
Yeah.
And they weren't using AI to write. They were using AI to ideate. And so we had a project where we had a real client that year for a thesis. One of the teams was repositioning the Archie Comics brand.
Okay.
And none of them were comic artists. And they had ideas that they wanted to experiment with. How can we reposition the Archie characters? What if Archie was a girl? Archie can also be a girl's name.
Yeah.
What if Archie was an Indian native? What if Archie was trans? What if Archie was any number of things? What if Archie, Betty, and Veronica were a throuple? And so everybody's fantasy, right? And suddenly they were able to put those prompts into AI and visualize what Archie and his cohort of friends or
Yeah.
their cohort of friends could look like. And that, to me, changed everything.
Was that something they just immediately jumped to?
Yeah.
Or they were like,
Yeah.
oh, what can we do with
No.
these tools? And
They immediately jumped to it because they weren't cartoon artists and they needed help. And that was not an area where we could support them. I'm not a cartoon artist. I love cartoons and I loved the Archie Comics brand when I was a kid. So I was really open to however they wanted to use that work to ideate. My feeling is AI has been particularly good for me for research.
yeah.
And that's where I rely on it. It understands the kind of research I want now.
Yeah.
My ChatGPT knows Debbie Millman's style of research.
Yeah.
And so it gives me a lot of support when I'm researching an interview for Design Matters. I don't craft my questions that way. I have tried, but they don't have the soul that I want.
Yeah.
I was really excited at first. Oh my God, I spend like 2 weeks preparing for an interview. Could this help me cut down that amount of time in a way that still keeps the integrity of my work intact?
Yeah.
And the research did, but the questions didn't. And
Okay.
so I've yet to, and I've tried Claude and I've tried other services, but there's nothing that has given me the depth that I want in the kind of questions that I ask. And mostly I think that's because of nuance. And that nuance is why I'm not worried about AI in relation to design and the future of humanity. We can get to that.
And that care that you put into it is why you have one of the longest running podcasts in the world.
I hope so. I mean, who doesn't want a shortcut? Who doesn't want their lives to be easier and their work to be easier? I don't mind that work, so it's not like a tragedy that I don't have a shortcut. Now I do have a shortcut in the type of research that I am able to aggregate, and that's a great thing.
You mentioned your work with students, and I think that gives you an amazing line into the next generation and how they're thinking about work and creativity, and even they're redesigning their own process. Do you feel like this generation coming right through now in universities or graduate programs is the first AI native generation, or they're still on the cusp of it? They're still figuring that out?
I think they're still figuring it out. What I will say about this generation, and then I want to go back and talk very, very specifically about students and brains. Our generation is going to be the last generation that creates both with and without AI.
Yeah.
Like, that train has left the station.
Okay.
AI is going to be part of the way people work, period. What I'm really excited about is I was the last generation that worked on the drafting table and then on the computer.
Okay.
That has always given me an advantage, always.
What was the advantage?
Craft, being able to make something with my hands, having that technical skill with an X-Acto blade or with a rapidograph or with a pencil. And I do think that that's an important skill to have. And some designers still use that craft and hone that craft on their own.
Yeah, if you know how to use an X-Acto blade today, does that give you an advantage 30 years after that transition happened?
I think it's the way my brain was formed.
Okay.
I do. In the same way that, I was able to overcome this. And also because I use the pencil so much in my work, I do feel like that has given me an advantage. And I feel now that I will have the advantage of being able to craft everything in my own brain and then also rely on a tool that can expand my brain.
Is it an advantage or a unique perspective? Because I feel like having your own voice, having your own personality and skill set, I think a unique perspective is an advantage, but
I do think for me, it is an advantage. What I'm worried about and what I'm seeing now across the board is young people relying on AI to do the thing, to make the thing, to go beyond the research. And I'm seeing a reliance, because it is easier, because there are shortcuts in young people. And that is what I'm more worried about than jobs. I'm more worried about students' brains not being able to craft certain things on their own before going to AI. In the same way that Australia now, there's rules now about when kids can start using social media.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So important, because their brains aren't fully formed yet. I think the same rules should be applied to young people and AI, because it's so important to have that mind, hand, brain connection. And I think that if we can't drive till we're 18, we can't drink till we're 21, there are certain things humans should be more fully formed before engaging in. And I think AI is one of them.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thought. And like our kids did Montessori for their primary school, and they talk a lot about that hand-brain connection and the development of it. And you increasingly see parents, using technology as a parenting tool. Just put an iPad in front of a kid and that's their entertainment. But there is something fundamental about a developing brain and the process that we have to go through to learn all of that.
Yeah, making things. And I see how easy it is. My wife is a world-renowned writer. She's teaching a creative writing class at a college. You'd think that anybody taking that class would be like, I get to show Roxane Gay my writing. She gets to comment on it. She gets to weigh in on it and assess it. Maybe that will help my future. She gets AI creative writing. She can tell. That is what I'm afraid of. That is what I'm afraid of.
And you're an incredible writer yourself, and you've talked about how writing helps you explore ideas and figure things out.
Yeah.
And what do you see happening now that pretty much most of the world is going to AI for writing?
I think that AI helping people write certain things is phenomenal. Helping somebody craft a resume, helping somebody craft a cover letter. If you put in your specifics and can really personalize it, especially for students of mine that aren't speaking English as their first language, but are competing against students that do. It's a real equalizer in a lot of ways. And I think that's fine. And I don't mind that. But I tell my students, because I teach a class at the School of Visual Arts on how to get a job when you graduate. Yeah. So that's one of the tools. And so I talk to them about how to best utilize AI to create advantage for them or as an equalizer, but not as a replacement for creativity and not as a replacement for original thought, because that's not where you're going to get original thinking. But if they can put in their prompts, this is what I love to do, this is where I want to work, this is who I want to work for, this is why I want to work for them, then what comes out is actually really quite lovely. And then I help them and I proofread it and we make it more their own. And then they are in a competitive advantage to get a good job.
Yeah. You've said that AI doesn't have a soul. It doesn't have its own point of view.
Yeah. Cam, we can't even pinpoint the origins of our own consciousness. We can't replicate our consciousness. That is one of the big mysteries of being alive. Where does our consciousness come from? When does it get ignited? Where does it go? Energy isn't destroyed in the universe. It's just recycled. So we don't understand any of that. I am not worried at all about computers becoming sentient in the next century. I'm not.
Sentient in the sense that they would be human-like,
self-aware,
or that they might be a different type of species or, being?
They're not going to have a heartbeat. You unplug them, they're going to stop working for the most part. They're not self-directed. I mean, yes, they can direct in some ways as agents, but there's not a consciousness there. There's not a consciousness there.
What is consciousness?
Exactly. Exactly. We don't know how consciousness is manifested in humans, in any species. How on earth are we going to be able to do that in a computer? I'm not worried about it.
I'm not 100% sold. I don't know all the answers.
Also, I just came from the TED conference where for 4 days I was listening to people saying this is just not going to happen, not in our lifetime. So
I would never rule anything off the table. At the moment, AI is a giant statistical model, but it does do surprising things every now and then.
It does. And I think it's also remarkable for science and for health. I did a panel 3 years ago at South by Southwest where I was talking to doctors and how they were beginning to use large models, language models and data models to be able to predict through our eyes whether or not we might be candidates for dementia. It's incredible. It's incredible. Yeah. That's magic. So I think there's a lot of magic that can happen, but pinpointing the ignition or origin of consciousness, honestly, if that happened, I'd be super excited. I'd also be terrified, but think about how many mysteries that would solve.
It would unlock so much. You have talked about this theme of distributed authorship, which maybe doesn't apply to AI. You've talked about distributed authorship in the kind of digital, distributed world which we live in, but does it also apply to AI? Can you have distributed authorship with AI if you're including it in the creative process?
So as something that needs to be credited?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I absolutely think that you have to be, in the same way that you want to attribute who did the photography or the typography or the illustration.
Is it then an author, or is it just you mentioning that you used a tool?
I think it's a tool. But I think what's interesting is that it's a hybrid tool between a Canva tool and a human thought or ingenuity or creativity. It's something that you're using. I mean, I don't know that you necessarily would have to designate what type of Sharpie you're using in developing handwritten typography. I don't know that is necessarily something you can compare to in terms of Midjourney or Discord or any of the services that you might be using, or even Canva.
Sharpie's not coming to you every Monday with a report saying, here's what I found around the internet and how I've summarized it, and here's some interesting ideas that you might be able to
I don't know that you need
though.
to credit AI with that. I think that if so for example, Poom Lefebvre from Design Army is using AI in some of the ad campaigns she's making. Highly stylized, very, very high-end looking photography. And she's been very open about the fact that this is what she's doing. She doesn't always do it, but she does do it. And she's on the forefront of really creating very beautiful, very soulful, creative output utilizing AI. And it takes her a long time to do. And it takes her over and over and over again, revising and just refining the prompts. But the work is really, really beautiful. I can't envision or imagine Poom ever not being open about the fact that she did this with AI.
Yeah.
In the same way that she might say, I work with Stephen Meisel and he did this photography, or I work with Jessica Hish and she did the hand lettering. So I think that I do think that there should be an openness to being able to use this. Right now, I think people probably feel that that's a negative thing. I think that will change very similarly to the way that talking about cosmetic surgery is changing.
Maybe here in LA, I feel like Australia is quite different still.
That's probably true. Australia is definitely more soulful than LA.
This 100% natural.
This mostly.
Creativity is really about breaking rules. Like, creativity is about doing something different that someone hasn't done before.
Right.
How do you go about using a tool like AI to break rules when it's really just following rules?
I don't know that you can. I think that you can find new information. Certainly, we're seeing that in science and in healthcare. What do you think? I want to know what you think. You're really the person that would know the answer to this more than me.
A lot of AI is about the seed which you start with. So everyone can type in pretty much the same question, like, give me a great idea, right? And AI is pretty much going to spit the same thing back at you. But the context that you give to AI radically shapes its output, because basically it's a giant statistical model that says, given this starting point, where should I go from here? And if you give it a different starting point to everyone else, whether it's like a perspective. I want this from the perspective of someone from this culture or this country. Or here is a sketch that I've done that no one has ever done before. Use this as a starting point to take it further. That context that you give it is super important.
Yeah, I mean, Poom's work is utterly original. It's not derivative. It isn't copying anybody else. If anything, it's building on her own style. So you can look at it and say, oh, that looks like Design Army did it, because it has a very sort of Poom Lefebvre feeling to it. With my students and their cover letters, I actually had them engage in an exercise where I showed them what would happen if they didn't put personalized, very specific prompts in. Their letters sound very similar. They don't sound original. They're not going to stand out. So they have to be able to put in really, really distinct prompts that give the AI the tool to be able to write something or help them write something, because all of it has to still be rewritten. It's a base for them to use that then it becomes an original aided resume or cover letter that will include all the things that are required in their voice with their details. And then it becomes something that is theirs.
Yeah. I mean, my philosophy and Canva's and what we build into the product itself is that we want to amplify people's creativity and impact. And I think amplifying implies that you have a starting point. You have an original thought that you want to express, a goal that you want to achieve, something that is different to the person sitting next to. And when you bring that thought and that goal to Canva, we help you bring it to life. So yes, that starting point is inherently and intrinsically human, and that's what we need to focus on despite any technology.
Yeah. I mean, spell check is AI.
You're very true. Let's move into the future for the last couple of minutes. You have been working with Canva and Affinity for a little while now, and we are trying to push forward creativity across the whole spectrum, from people who maybe thought they weren't creative to people who have been doing creative practice for decades as professional designers. How are you seeing the scene change, and are you seeing different conversations now happening between traditional creatives and the rest of the world?
I don't know that I've ever really been a traditional creative.
That's a very creative answer.
I got a lot of grief at the beginning of my career for being somebody that was working in branding, and see how that's changed now over 30 years.
Why would you get grief for working in branding?
I was called a corporate clown and a sellout and a she-devil.
Wow, that should just be on your business card.
I know. Someday I want to write a memoir called Confessions of a She-Devil or something like that. Brand blasphemy and other confessions of a she-devil. Because I was using this tool to further the reach of corporate brands, of fast-moving consumer goods, of potato chips and over-the-counter pharmaceuticals and fast food restaurants. And that's changed in my career since the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah. But I did get vilified for it for a long time because I wasn't part of what was literally, quote, the precious design world.
Yeah.
Over time, I think I've just stuck around long enough and tried as gracefully as I could to talk about why I thought that was the wrong way of looking at what we're doing. We have as much a responsibility as anybody in the precious design world to do good work and to do work that won't harm. And I think that because I did stick around and have stuck around for as long as I have and pushed back consistently against those beliefs, certainly being part of AIGA helped do that. Ultimately becoming president of the national board of AIGA helped that. And then I went around the country and then later around the world really talking about inclusivity and how all design voices matter.
Yeah.
And that is actually what originally intrigued me about Canva in the democratization of design, because that's something I've always stood for. And when I heard Mel talking about that, when I heard you talking about that, that's what first piqued my interest about Canva, in that anybody should be able to use the tools of design and branding to change the world, change behavior, change their lives, change products. The very tenets of branding that we use for potato chips and over-the-counter pharmaceuticals and fast food restaurants are the same tools and tenets that Me Too, Black Lives Matter, Time's Up, all of these movements, which has only happened in the last 15 years or so. So people are using those tenets of branding to be able to change behavior. And that, to me, is the most powerful tool we have as humans, which I don't think AI can do yet.
Yeah, it's incredible to see those she-devil skills moving into social impact and truly delivering on the promise of what design can actually do.
Yeah, but I've been trying to do that since the 80s. I was working with Gloria Steinem. I was working with Mim Kelber and Bella Abzug in the 80s. And then in the 90s, I worked with Planned Parenthood. I've worked recently with Lambda Legal. I mean, this is what I want to do. And for the last 12 years, I've been working with the Joyful Heart Foundation to use these very specific tools to eradicate sexual violence, which we're trying to do. I mean, one of the big efforts was to eradicate the backlog of rape kits in this country, in the United States, which we have largely done. I'm happy that to me is the meaning of my life.
You do incredible work, and you're a beacon for creatives of all types all around the world.
Thank you.
Given that, we're in a moment of tool shifts, technology is undoubtedly changing how we work, but maybe not how we think. What do you think creatives should be doing in 10 years? What should we hold on to as all this change happens?
To lead it, to be at the front lines, to experiment, to not be as afraid of the new tools as Socrates and Plato were of writing, or as any of the public might have been afraid of radio, television, the telephone. There was an article in the New York Times when the telephone came out where there was fear that it would turn us into blobs of jelly. The founder of the radio regretted creating that technology for fear that people wouldn't leave their houses. When video first came out, people were worried that everything would be recorded. That might be true. But there's no technology that has come out in our history as a species, not one that I have discovered or found, where there wasn't some backlash to that technology. And if we look at that as a pattern in our humanity and in our way of thinking, it maybe could make us less afraid of what this tool can do and more empowered to leverage it for our creativity and to stop the bad acting. And I think that's really powerful.
That is a great note to end this conversation on. Thank you. I want to shift gears and ask you about your all-star creative team. Okay. I'm sure you have a fascinating team that you've put together. We want you to choose 4 people from any era. They can be dead, they can be alive, they could even be imaginary. But who would you have on your all-star creative team?
Okay, on my all-star creative team, I would have Albert Einstein.
Amazing.
Joni Mitchell.
Okay.
Agnes Martin, the artist.
I do not know Agnes Martin.
And my wife.
4
Roxanne
choices. Why those choices, and what do you think the interplay between them would be?
Well, Albert Einstein, to talk about the origins of the universe. I do believe in that we're here because of the Big Bang, but what was there before, where the helium and the hydrogen come from.
Yep.
So I'd want to talk a lot about that. I'd want to talk to Joni Mitchell about the craft of music making and storytelling and how she created the body of work that she's created, which is unparalleled in pop music and in music in general. I'd want to talk to Agnes Martin because she was able to draw a perfectly straight line without a ruler.
Did she do H's?
Well, technically, she did a lot of pieces that were grids, and there's H's embedded in all those grids. Like the way you brought that back, that was very good. Very, very good. And then my wife, because she's the smartest and most extraordinary person I've ever met.
That sounds like an amazing team who would actually work really well together, I think.
Yes.
I think Matt, our designer in residence, has had a bit of time to take your, 3-year-old sketch?
So I think about maybe four. Yeah.
3-4-year-old sketch and turn it into something amazing. It's a collaboration between you, Matt, and AI. Matt, are you there?
Hello, yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Great to see you and hear you.
Amazing. Hello, great to see you too.
I'm so excited.
This is called The Letter She Left Behind. And essentially, you brush through this very first creative experiment of Debbie, and the name she chose emerges underneath. The iteration is the empowerment because we draw until we emerge.
That is so poetic and beautiful. And I love that you managed to create this in 40 minutes. You've taken Deborah or part Deborah logo from when she was 3 or 4 years old and turned it into a complete interactive experience that reveals her new name. It's beautiful. What do you think, Debbie?
I like it very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is incredibly creative, Matt. And I think that is a prime example of how people, AI, and other people can work together to create something amazing.
Yes. So you want to see what I learned how to do as I evolved in my writing style?
Yeah, what happened?
So when I was a kid, so my parents got divorced when I was about 8 or so, and my mother got married to a man who was very strict and abusive and also a real disciplinarian. And I was never somebody that could like color in the lines, and I was a messy kid. And so I'd get punished a lot for being messy. But what he did was give us these writing assignments. Like we'd have to write 500 times. Like I will clean my closet or whatever it was. And I'd get really bored doing that. And so I started first doing columns, I, won't. And then I started to play with how I wrote things. And so I went from this to this.
That is an incredible skill.
I can write mirror backwards.
Show it to the camera. That is incredible.
And so,
and
skills
you've retained that throughout your entire life.
My entire life. I do it whenever I can. And now I could actually, because I love doing this so much, I can actually write both front and back in the same way, like a composer. Not as well with my right hand, but I can actually write. Let me see if I can.
All right. I think I can tell the right hand from the left hand there.
Yes,
but that's what it looks like. But it's still an amazing. That's some Leonardo da Vinci level genius there.
No, it isn't. I will reveal the secret. I'm a lefty.
Yeah.
And apparently, if lefties try to do this, I don't know about the front and back at the same time, but although you very well could if you practice, but definitely lefties have somehow an innate ability to write backwards if they try.
Okay. Well, I'm going to try that with my son because he's also left-handed.
And think about what'll happen next.
This has been an amazing conversation. We've got like negative 3 minutes left. So
okay.
I would love to just quickly run through our rapid fire questions with you, which will give you away with hopefully just one word to give us even deeper insight into the thoughts of Debbie. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. First rapid fire question. AI and design, revolution or natural progression?
Natural progression.
Your most controversial opinion about AI that nobody in the industry wants to hear?
That it's not going to destroy our discipline.
Biggest lie being told about AI and creativity?
Well, I don't know that it's a lie, but that it's going to be sentient anytime soon. Sorry, I know that you think that differently.
What was your gut reaction the first time you saw AI-generated art?
Holy F!
In a good way or a bad way?
Both. It was terrifying and thrilling and exhilarating and scary all at the same time. It was like, oh my God, it was magic. And it was something that I just couldn't understand.
Who's using AI in the most interesting way at the moment?
Doctors and scientists.
Fill in this blank. AI is making designers...
queasy.
One word to describe where design is headed.
The future.
And finally, what's one question we should have asked you?
What would you like to learn next?
That is a great question to ask. Thank you, Debbie. It has been an amazing conversation about your career, everything you've seen and everything you will see, and everything you've learned about technology and how AI could really help us be more creative in the future. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Cam. Thanks for having me. It's been an honor. Thank you.
And you've been listening to Prompted, a podcast about AI, creativity, and the creative spark. You can, of course, catch this on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. You can also listen to Debbie's amazing podcast, Design Matters, wherever you listen to podcasts as well. Thank you, Debbie, for being on.
Thank you.
It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. I've loved every minute of it. Thank you.